What's going on today, guys? In today's video, we're going to be rebuilding the fuel system in the Porsche 944. Specifically, the fuel lines. We're going to be tackling that, replacing all of the fittings, replacing all of the rubber hoses, front and back of the car. I'm going to be showing you step by step exactly how I personally will be doing it. Now, there are different ways to do this. I'm just going to show you how I'm doing it. The video is just for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research and make sure you know what you're getting into, as fuel is highly flammable and I can't be responsible for you doing something incorrectly and causing either damage or injury to yourself. So with that out of the way, let's get started. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a pre-assembly here. And we're just going to get some things ready. So we got our M18 by 1.5 to -8 AN adapter fitting here. And this is just going to go on the end of our fuel pump. Before we can put that on, we actually got to put a copper crush wire in there. And that's just going to prevent anything from leaking out on this side of the fitting. So that just goes on there like that. And we're just going to tighten that down onto this here. And then we've got our -8 AN hose fitting. It's 120-degree fitting. It just goes from your -8 AN female end to the hose, rubber hose, and that's just going to be coming out the fuel pump on this side around the adapter we just placed. And we just got to get a small piece of rubber hose to go on here. Probably just going to modify this piece here. Probably just going to cut it, and that'll go from this here to our fuel strainer. This guy right here, which will be going inside the fuel tank. Now we got our fuel filter here, and what I did, I took off the fitting that was there and I'm replacing it. This is the fitting that was there. As you can see, neither one of those ends are -6 fitting, and eventually we needed to get it to a -6. So I got this fitting here, which is a M16 by 1.5 to -6 male to male with a crush washer. It's aluminum with a rubber gasket inside, and that just goes on there like that, and that'll screw right onto this. And then from there we've got our -6 AN 150-degree nylon hose fitting here. So this goes straight to the nylon hose, and this is 150-degree bend to our female -6. Will then go to our male -6 on the end of the fuel filter, just like that. Bit of a cleaner installation. We got our nylon braided hose to our straight -6 8 AN adapter, which then goes to our hardline adapter right here, which is a 3/8 hardline adapter. And I'll show you how we install that when we get into the car. For the other side of the fuel filter, we've got this fitting here, a M16 by 1.5 to -6 AN, and it's male to male again. And for this side, going into the fuel filter, you'll need another copper crush wire, or crush washer, sorry. All right, so this is essentially what you're going to see at the back of the car. Once you get underneath, it's underneath the fuel tank behind the rear axle. So this here is the fuel strainer. You're going to find this inside your tank. It's always a good idea if you're doing any fuel system repairs at the back of the car, pull this guy out and clean it out. Mine was really filthy. I've cleaned it up a lot and it still looks like this. I might try cleaning it again. But basically, these screens can fall apart. The screen will get wrecked. Some gases, type of grade of gas you're using in your vehicle could actually eat away at the screen over time, and wouldn't be filtering anything out anymore. So you want to check that. And another good test to do, if you're still unsure, if it still looks like it's intact, just take the screen and you just want to twist it a little bit, and you just want to make sure it all stays intact and there's no holes in it anywhere, because this is your first safety net, preventing any debris from getting into your fuel system. So make sure that's intact. If yours looks like crap, replace it. I think it's just over $100 to replace this. And also there's a rubber O-ring that you want to make sure is in good shape in there. I got a new one for $9 from Porsche directly. So this is the O-ring that goes in there, and that just seals this piece up against the tank underneath the car. So anyways, that's the first part of your fuel system. And then it's going to be coming into this rubber hose here, which I believe is a 120-degree bend on that, and it goes into your fuel pump, into the valve check, into this other piece of rubber, going into your 45, and then it's going into your fuel filter. Then we're coming around, and then we're coming out of another 120-degree bend there, and we're coming back and going into the hard line of the car. So basically I want to rebuild this hose here, replace these fittings, and rebuild this hose and replace both of these fittings as well. And I want to replace this hose actually with a new fitting, because the new fuel pump does not accept this style of hose to go right on it. It's actually going to be a -8 AN fitting adapter, which I've got right here, that's going to adapt out to, I believe it's an M18 by 1.5. Then we're just going to have a small section of hose from here to go into the fuel strainer. So I'll get started on this and I'll show you every step of the way.
These are all the parts we'll need for the installation. This is for the back of the car near the fuel tank, as well as in the engine bay.
So the first step to making the custom lines was I assembled the fuel filter and fuel pump assembly the best I could in a way that would mimic the way it would be installed on the car. So as you can see, I've got the fuel pump connected to the fuel filter here, and I just measured the distance center to center between the fuel filter and fuel pump. And then I also measured from this distance here to where it would line up with the front of the fuel pump to kind of get a good idea of exactly how the new fuel filter and fuel pump will line up. And then that will help me determine the length of hose I need to cut from our nylon braided piece that we have right here. So this is our new fuel line. So we're going to be replacing all of this with new fittings and this new section of fuel line rather than using the old style of rubber hose. And I'll line this all up with the new parts, and I'll show you what we do there. All right, so I got my new fuel filter and my new fuel pump lined up.
Just wanted to mention this. I failed to get a video of it, but I removed the old fuel pump from this black koozie on the end of my tape measure here. This is an insulator for the fuel pump. It helps eliminate the sound that the fuel pump generates. I highly recommend reusing this and putting this on your 044 fuel pump if you do happen to use it. Here is the only reason why.
Again, this is the 044 fuel pump, and this is just the Hengst H127WK fuel filter. So now they're about 7 inches center to center apart. And then here we've got about 2¼ inches front of the fuel filter to front of the fuel pump there. This edge to that edge. So then this is going to be our distance between the hose. So what you want to do here, you just want to pull these caps off. I've decided to remove the check valve that would normally be in here. Here's the check valve here. So I've decided to remove that just because it restricts flow of fuel a little bit, and that'll help open up the flow a little bit better if I want to increase some of the power. We will have a bit of increased power on this car as it is, more than factory. So a little bit of extra fuel flow here will be nice. There are tutorials online how to drill this out, but instead of drilling it out, I'm just going to remove it. I'm going to use this system I've got back here where I just used the bolt that came with this banjo bolt. So this is the bolt that came with my banjo bolt assembly. And so I'm just going to use that. It removes the check valve, so I am going to lose pressure on the fuel rail when the car shuts off. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to get an aftermarket check valve that has high performance fuel flow. So we'll just put that in there like that. You got to make sure you've got your crush washers in there to prevent fuel from leaking out. And then I'll make sure I've got my correct dimension here. Again, this is just rough, doesn't have to be accurate. We're dealing with rubber hose here. As long as we have enough to reach our distance, it should be fine. Worst case, I can take it apart and modify it as needed. Hopefully we get this right in the first try. So we got our nylon braided hose. Again, this is just dash 6 nylon braided hose. And I'm just going to line that up there. Try and not move this too much. And bring that down to there. Line it up where it's going to bottom out on the other fitting. That's about the length that we're going to need right there. So I'll just mark that with some masking tape. Cutting it a little bit longer is better than cutting it too short. So obviously we're not going to be able to stretch this out, but if we had to take it all apart and cut a little bit more off, we still have that option. It's a bit too long. So I'm going to use a grinder to cut this because the grinder gives us a nice clean cut, and then move on to the next part. There you go. There's our nice clean cut. And because of the friction that's created when it's cutting, it actually does a pretty good job of preventing the nylon from fraying and creating quite a mess. So we can just trim that off with an X-Acto knife, and this should go into the fitting quite easily. All right, to assemble the fuel hose, you want to take your collar off of your fitting. So this one came off of this fitting here. So you just unscrew it. Okay, and that's what it looks like. You get your two pieces. This is the -6 AN fitting. This is your -6 AN hose line side. And this is what the fitting will look like once you remove it. So you just want to take that fitting and you want to press that or push that over your hose line. Now this is a little bit tough just because you got to make sure she's liquid tight, and it's going to be under pressure as well. So they are pretty tough fittings. So there we go. We've got it bottomed out there against the aluminum. So then what we're going to do, we're going to put this in the vise right over here. And we're going to clamp this down while applying pressure to the hose to make sure the hose stays inside the fitting as much as we possibly can while we tighten it down.
When I first decided to build these AN lines, I thought I could get away without having to get specialty tools. I thought I could just use a couple of wrenches on the actual fitting like this and tighten it down. Well, that quickly proved to be a bad idea, as essentially you need 3 hands to do that. Reason being is because as you're tightening down the fitting, it's trying to push the line out the end of the hose. So you do want to apply pressure inwards like this as you're tightening it. So essentially you need 1 hand for your hose, pushing it into the fitting, preventing it from pushing out. And you need 2 hands to tighten the compression fitting to handle both wrenches as you're tightening down. So obviously that's not very practical for most people unless you have a friend helping you out, then you might be able to get away with that. So then the other idea was just to use a standard vise, such as this. So essentially, just put your fitting in there and tighten down the vise, and then that'll hold your fitting into place, as you can then apply pressure with 1 hand, pushing the hose in, and then using the wrench to tighten down this fitting piece. Now that's fine if you don't mind marring up the AN fitting. So if you put your fitting in here and tighten it down, you see all these ridges in here, which most vices have, to really grab onto any item you're putting in here. It will leave marks in the fitting. So all these fittings are made out of aluminum, so they're not really strong steel, and they'll mark up really easily. Now if you don't care about that, then by all means use a vise and a standard wrench. It won't matter for you. But if you do care about how your fittings look, like it's going to be under your hood and you want your engine kind of look nice, then at that point I do highly recommend these tools. If you're only doing a couple, you could definitely get away with some wrenches. If you're doing more than just a couple of fittings, then at that point, save yourself the hassle and get the correct tools for the job. I tried to avoid it. The first one I did was horrible without these tools, and then I decided to just hold off, get the right tools, and the installation became much easier. So these particular vise clamp inserts just go in to your vise like this. Really straightforward. Just go into the vise like that, and then you just pop your fitting in like that, and you tighten down your vise. So it holds them in really well. and you don't have to worry about it bouncing around on you or moving or having a buddy help you out. You just got this here. Also, it's not going to mark up your fittings on you. And then get a nice big wide adjustable wrench like this. It's designed for AN fittings again, and it works beautifully. One thing about this wrench that was a little bit annoying, but I did find a solution for it, because I kept having this loosen off on me. But you just put a little bit of grease in there, and then this won't spin as easy, and it won't loosen off on you as you're tightening things up. So these two tools I can't recommend enough. Now, there are some places online that do charge quite a bit for these tools, but if you look around, you can find them relatively cheap. I actually sell them myself on my website. You can check on Amazon, eBay, wherever you find the cheapest price. They're all pretty much the same. They're going to do the same job. But you'd be supporting the channel if you buff from me. I'd appreciate it. To celebrate 100 subscribers, we're actually going to be giving away an AN fitting starter set, which includes the AN wrench and the Vise clamp inserts. All you gotta do to enter the contest is leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel. That's it. My way of saying thanks to you guys for being here watching the videos. Hopefully you're the winner. Put a little bit of tape on there so you can see how much it pushes back. If it pushes back too far, you might want to redo this fitting. A little bit I'm fine with. Alright, so I put the fitting in front of the heater, let it heat up a little bit. What it will do, it'll soften up the rubber of this hose, and it'll allow for you to install it much easier into the fittings. We'll put a little bit of oil on here. Start it by hand, just make sure we get it threaded correctly. We'll just go as far by hand as we can. Alright, so as far as we're going to go by hand, we'll finish this up with the wrench. There you go. That's what the end result looks like. So we marred up this end just a little bit. Not too bad though. And you can see we've only pushed out about 1/8 of an inch, which is totally acceptable in my books. There's gonna be nothing wrong with that. Fitting is going to be sealed up really well. And we've got our banjo bolt on. And what's nice about these fittings, this still swivels, so you're not restricted about how this is going to install. Like if you need to have it this way, you can swivel this around. So it's not going to restrict you. Your hose isn't going to be trying to twist or anything like that. You're not going to be applying any unnecessary pressure on the fuel filter or fuel pump, because you've got full control of how you can install this piece of hose in the back of the car, which is nice. I'm not going to show you how to install all of the fittings. Principles will be the same for all of the hoses required for the car. I will provide some diagrams though showing the length of hose required for each section and the fittings that are going to be installed onto those sections of hose. Here we got our hard lines. This is called Cupro nickel. This is our 5/16, and this is our 3/8 here. Now I've heard that this stuff is bendable by hand, so it should be easier to install. I'm really hoping that's the case, because I really don't want to take the rear suspension off on this car if I can help it. So I'm hoping I can sneak this stuff up and over the rear torsion bar and make my job a lot easier.
All right, so tonight I'm going to be trying my hand at installing some hardline. First time I'm going to be doing this. I got my 5/16 Cupro nickel hardline here. After I get this in, I'll be doing the 3/8 next. But anyways, let's start with the toughest part of this car, which is going to be getting over this torsion bar. We got to get the hardline up and over that. So I'm thinking of sneaking the line up through here first, and then bending it, and then kind of pulling it back here and making these bends. Alright, so it looks like I am going to get it to go. What I'm kind of doing, I'm just pushing it up through here, and as I've been pushing it up, I just pry down on it a little bit, and I push it in a little bit further, and what that's doing, it's kind of bending the pipe a bit as I'm putting it in. I need to get it close to this end because I need to flare the end of this still, which is going to be interesting. Alright, so I'm going to try flaring piece of pipe for the first time. Never done this before, so it should be interesting because I decided to try it in a very easy to access spot. Not. That should be fun. Okay. Yeah, step number 1. Make sure your fittings over the tube. Okay, so now I got about 1/8 of an inch. Stick it up there. Sorry if you guys can't see this all too well, but that's what it looks like there. You see the end of the pipe sticking out and just flaring down, or screwing down the flaring bit. I don't know if that's what you call it, but that's what I'm calling it, because that's what it looks like. Alright, so there's our flared end. Now I'm just gonna unroll this and continue on our straight line here.
Run out of time in this video, so part 2 of the fuel line installation will be coming up shortly. Don't forget to leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel to enter our contest for the fuel line tool set. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. See you guys on the next one.